Hello, hello, hello. My name is Michael Peretti. This is my IT201 demo, and I am extremely excited to show you guys what I've been able to create today. I do have this running on OBS um, as a game capture. Typically, my computer does not do a very good job capturing any kind of performant applications, especially with 3D games. So I'm hoping that this will be clean and easy to watch through. I'm gonna go over step by step how I implemented certain things, as I'm not going to be diving directly into the code, but rather, I guess, explaining maybe some of the pseudocode or explaining some of the methodologies that I use to execute what I've created here today. So I'll just start off by first showing this scene. This is a separate scene from the main game. I created two buttons and I utilized one of them more as just an instruction panel with display button being active, and some Text Mesh Pro with a panel, and I have a background with mild opacity, and it kind of goes well with the whole wire mesh theme that I was going for actually. So what's interesting about this is you see um, some of the scene is being rendered behind it. The white, not as opaque, that is part of the scene, and then overlapping that is the canvas with the background image of this additional wire mesh figurine or figure. That looks really cool. So I ended up naming this project Ski Puck Retro. Some of the instructions: hit bounce pads to gain points, get score combos by aiming well, avoid enemies as they slow you down, score goals for more points. Now, all this is actually kind of interesting because as I developed and I went through the developing process, my expectations and what I was going to try and accomplish, how I was going to execute on them changed a lot. For instance, hit bounce pads to gain points. Something unique about that is there's a point combo system multiplier that's put into place where you're advised or recommended to um, click and aim and launch the player, but to not launch him again while he's moving, um, because for every time that you hit a bounce pad without um, moving or launching the player again, there's returning benefits of a multiplier that stacks as you continue to hit bounce pads. So it's a great way to increase the amount of points that you're getting. Additionally, get score combos by aiming well. That kind of ties into that main feature right there, the combos. But you still need to aim well. Avoid enemies as they slow you down is kind of funny because I never intended the enemies to actually um, be something to avoid. I thought they were going to be something that you want to hit, but as I continue to play, it was going to be hard to implement the score for them. I could just change the flat rate of the amount of score that you're getting, but I saw that as counterproductive, as they slowed your momentum down, and I wanted this to be a game where you continuously have some kind of momentum. Um, and that's going to make the game a little bit more fun, the gameplay loop a little bit more enjoyable and action packed, as opposed to hitting an enemy stopping, hitting another enemy stopping. And those enemies are also controlled by an instantiation um, script that creates clones of my enemy prefab, and yeah, they're worth 50 points. For some reason, sometimes the 50 points are given and other times they're not, but they're worth 50 points and they slow you down with a really cool effect. I'll show you that. And finally, score goals for more points. This is the last thing I added, since the original asset that I imported was this giant town. And one of the prefabs just so happened to be this stadium. So I ended up just taking that stadium prefab out of the entire assets folder, and I scaled it up I changed the shader over to the wire mesh since that was the only shader that, really worked, and I thought it was cool. So I scaled it up, and then I basically put, shapes and colliders with rigid body that were ignoring gravity to directly below like a zero point 0.1 as a float underneath the stadium prefab to simulate that that was a physical entity. But I just basically made custom colliders and everything, and shapes to match where the collisions would be happening if the prefab was um, a physics object. One other thing, I'll regard the WebGL build as I was able to get it to work as the same light that you're seeing. This is the Windows build, but unfortunately, because I made every shader the wire mesh, that is strictly going to be only being rendered, I guess, via Unity, and any WebGL builds just pop up as a purple screen. So I definitely took a unique approach to this game, and I hope you see this. So let's click on the play button. It's going to immediately launch our game. We get some nice cool volume, and we have a timer. We have a session standing high score, and if I start playing, I'll let the music go, and it already against some enemies hidden into us. So I'll kind of let the gameplay show for itself, and then as we come out of the main menu, I will explain some more. All right, so no clean animations to back to the main menu, but we saw a lot there, and let me go over it. So there's a line renderer coming out from behind the player, and that has its nice little colors to it. You saw that there are VFX effects, a particle system going above the entire map, which was custom written out to be very cool looking, and basically utilize gravity to make this raining effect, and that just gives some more movement to the map. And I really wanted to focus on the game design here, as well as the gameplay loop. Additionally, you saw some enemies getting stuck. Just with the way that I wrote the logic, I didn't use any nav mesh dependencies or like nav mesh components because I kind of wanted to simulate. Now looking back at it, it probably would have been easier, but I wanted to, dive my feet into writing some of the physics code and learned a little bit more about that, which I definitely did, and it came out good enough for me, in my opinion. I sent out a raycast, adjacent to where the mouse is being clicked. Additionally, I had to set up the collision or the colliders for the walls. I needed to set them high up to ensure that the player high and thick to ensure the player isn't going to obviously go out of the map, even though he still does if you flick too hard and apply too much force. But I digress. I had to layer that so that it is ignoring raycasts coming from my mouse click. So that was on a way to avoid that and simply target the puck or the player. Additionally, you saw the goal mechanic, which I actually ended up making pretty like late in the project. I really enjoyed that, and if I go back and show you, which I don't know if you'll be able to hear me over the volume, but um, yeah, I definitely enjoyed that mechanic, typically or mainly because it's it was pretty simple and effective. I was able to set two sphere colliders. Excuse me. I was able to set two sphere colliders to um, have a child object of a sphere. I simply rotated the transform position, the transform, but not the position of that sphere to give this little cool indication that matched the rest of the theme of which goal was active. Um, the collider sucks in the player or the puck and compares tags, brings it to that transform, and then originally my idea was to um, propel it outwards in the either positive x axis as corresponding to the map or the negative x axis, but that was not working properly and was acting more as a bounce as I was trying to replicate some of the logic that I wrote for the bounce pads. Um, so yeah, lots of custom logic, especially for applying force to the player. There was custom logic and different logic for walls as compared to corner pieces because that was an issue since the map is in the perfect rectangle. I need to not only make those corner pieces, but in order for the enemies to spawn on them, I needed to mathematically limit the area of um, potential spawn places. Every now and then you'll get unlucky and a specific enemy will spawn in a area outside of the map, and that will just continue forever, wasting up memory. But for the most part, all the enemies typically are spawning in the correct area, and that's because there's a hard-written code reducing the plane size of the floor to allow enemies to spawn in an area where they are not going to spawn outside. So there's that. Um, a lot of the VFX effects and other random assets, mostly for effects, were imported. Um, I did do some cleanup work and wrote a script that is basically pooling non-use objects, um, and that just fits everything into an array and iterates over it and caches things, and that definitely boosted my FPS. Um, Caring about FPS was definitely something I needed to consider, at least on this device. I don't know why, but it's not necessarily a weak device, but it's a Lenovo. And yeah, I see performance drops when using things like terrains and big not getting into the realm of like big lighting and shadows, and they all look very nice, but they're extremely intensive on my computer, especially since there's no dedicated graphics card. So rendering those tries and intersects is taxing, I guess, on the CPU or the integrated GPU. I don't know the hardware components, but definitely something I needed to worry about or be concerned with as I continue to develop this project. Something as simple as a retro game, I wanted anything to be able to play on it. So that was the reason for ensuring that I had some script that was gonna give me some FPS boosts, as well as going with the wire mesh. I was able to remove all lighting outside of my project. Thus, the reason the WebGL build isn't working properly, but on the other hand, the performance is definitely noticeable. I think I run around 200 frames per second on this. Um, and this is, not meant for gaming, so any more well-equipped laptop should be blazing through this game, which is fantastic. Um, I had a lot of ideas, like having the enemies oscillate too, and um, you know, apply different effects, but I think this game came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the way that it ended up coming out. And yeah, so I guess I'll close it here. I appreciate anyone who took the time to listen and hear me talk about my game. I'm definitely very proud of this one. I love the way that this came out, and with even more polished work, I think it could be something that people might, actually want to play for longer than one run around, even though it is fun, but it does get old, and I'm sure the gameplay loop could be worked upon, and other things like maybe like a store system could be added. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. Have a good one. Bye bye.